Good morning. Isn't there something just beautiful about gathering with your church family and declaring how much we need God? Like just the diversity that's in this room, and yet all of us acknowledge that we need him, that we're nothing without him. There's just something beautiful about that. So some of you have known me since I was a little sixth grader. A lot of you have not. You've only seen me pop in on holidays, Christmas specifically, or maybe on a summer little getaway. So I figured on my first official Sunday, I needed to let you in on a little secret, something that you need to find out sooner rather than later. And it's just something I think it's really important. And so what I want to let you know here is that I have zero musical ability in my body. None. Okay? I cannot hold a tune. I'm rhythmically challenged. I remember when my family moved to Elizabethtown in the middle of my sixth grade year. I don't know why this memory is stuck in my head, but I remember it. We went to register for classes at TK Stone, the middle school right here in town. And we were going to my classes. It was standard, your English, your math, your history, and some other things. But one of the things that I had to take was some sort of, creative arts type class. And so they were like, you can do choir, you can do band, and I think they mentioned art, but I don't really remember that. But I think that was one of the three options as well. And I remember as a little sixth grader, this new place just being like, well, I can't play an instrument. Like, I know for sure, and I can't fake that. There's no way to fake playing an instrument. I'm not artistic at all. Like, I draw stick figures, okay? That's the extent of my artistic ability. I can't really sing. In fact, I know I can't sing, but I can fake it. I can lip sing in choir. And so I signed up for choir, and I did it all of middle school, and I don't know if I ever sang at a choir thing. I just went there, in my black suit, just lip singing along, because I had no musical ability, and I still to this day have no musical ability. In fact, I can promise you with 100% certainty that Sarah will never ask me to join the worship team because it would be a disaster. And if for some reason I was ever up here, I'd be lip singing, just like I did all the way back in sixth grade, all right? So I have no musical ability. You need to know that, all right? Don't ask me to do anything musically. It's going to be a disaster. But here's the thing. Despite my lack of musical ability, I'm a worshiper. I'm a worshiper, and so are you. In fact, we are hardwired for worship. From the moment that we were born, from the moment that we were conceived and we came into this world, we were hardwired for worship. And we all search for worship. Even the people that don't ascribe to a Christian faith, that aren't here today, that are, just doing whatever they want to do on their Sunday morning, are worshiping something. And the reason I know that and the reason we can see that is because worship is our response to what we value the most. And so how we spend our time, how we invest in things is an expression of our worship. For some, it's a worshiping of their career. They pour everything they are into their job, and that is where they find their identity, and that is what they worship. For some, you see it on every single Sunday during football season, they worship their sports team, right? I think about things like the Kansas City Chiefs and Red Kingdom and, Houday Nation and the Dog Pound and all these different, Cowboys, all those different things. They worship that. Yeah, there you go, let it out. All right. Yep, I love it. But they worship it, right? For some, they worship their family. Their identity is so wrapped up in their family that is what they worship. And for some, hopefully all of us in this room, we worship above all the living and the holy and our holy God, above all. But here's the tension, okay? I think sometimes we get worship a little confused. I know I did. For a large portion of my life, I viewed worship as this, all right? Worship is what took place when I came to church on Sunday mornings, and this wonderful worship team or whoever it was up here led us in worship. Or maybe on a Wednesday night when I was a student, it was going to youth ministry and having worship then, or it was at camp, or it was at convention, or at some sort of conference. That is what I viewed worship as. It was those moments that were set aside, 20, 30 minutes for a long one of singing songs together in a group of people and worshiping. Maybe occasionally I thought, okay, it's putting on worship music in my car or in my office or whatever it may be. But the problem with this view of worship is that when we reduce worship to just those moments, we miss out on the life that Jesus has called us to. we miss out on how he has access to worship. You see, this perspective of worship, of being limited to only an onstage moment or in a Sunday morning or at a conference, would have been foreign to the early church, and it would have been foreign to the Apostle Paul. Listen to the language that Paul uses to describe worship to the church in Rome in Romans chapter 12, verses 1 through 2. Listen to what he says. He says, "And so, dear brothers and sisters, I plead with you." I just want to pause. I'm like, not even a half a sentence in, and I want to pause. Listen to the strong language that Paul uses. He says, "Dear brothers and sisters, I plead with you." There's an emphasis there of, I need you to listen to this. You've got to get a hold of this. This is key to what I'm asking to you. I'm begging you. I plead with you to give your bodies to God because of all he has done for you. Let them be a living and holy sacrifice, the kind he will find acceptable. You ready for this? This is truly the way to worship him. So Paul is writing to the church in Rome, and I'm going to read verse 2 here in just a second. He's writing to the church in Rome, and he says, I am begging you to get this. I am pleading with you, understand this, that what I am asking of you, that what Christ is asking of you, is that your form of worship is to give all that you are to him. Every capacity, every thought, every goal, every ambition, every desire, every hidden thing, it belongs to God. And this is what I am begging of you, to give it to him. And Paul goes on because he doesn't leave us without help. And in verse 2, he says this. He says, to give it, this is the way to truly worship him. Don't copy the behavior and the customs of this world, but let God transform you into a new person by changing the way you think. Then you will learn to know God's will for you, which is good and pleasing and perfect. So Paul's instruction to the church in Rome and his instruction to us today is, I beg you to give your life, your entirety of your life to God as an act of worship. And you do this by not conforming to the patterns of this world. It means that what we worship can't be what the world worships. Our worship cannot be that of politics or of sports or of our career or even of our family. It only belongs to God. That is how we will worship him, and it's how we will be in the center of his good and perfect will for us. See, there's a question that captivates, I think, all of humanity, that captivates all of us today. It's a quite simple and yet deeply profound question, and it's simply this: what is my purpose? What is my purpose? What am I here for? What value does my life hold? And the beautiful thing for us as followers of Jesus is that the Christian life provides a beautiful answer to that series of questions. What is my purpose? What am I here for? And it's wrapped up in this phrase that Pastor Jeff just teased. It's called Coram Deo. Coram Deo. And it captures the essence of the Christian life, of what it is meant to be. It is to live one's life, the entirety of it, all that you are, in the presence of God, under the authority of God, and to the glory of God. This is what we are called to do as an act of worship, is to live a Coram Deo life that says, God, all that I have, all of my dreams, all my desires, every part of my life, the seen and the unseen, it's all wrapped up and it belongs to you. And I'm going to live my life for you to be in your presence before the face of God. You see, it's a recognition that the entirety of our life is worship to God. Many of us, and most of us probably at times, have lived with this striking dichotomy between our spiritual life and our house life, our home life, and our career or whatever it want to be. But to live a Coram Deo life is to live a life of wholeness and coherency. It means that when you walk out of this building, nothing changes about who you are. It all belongs to God. There's a consistent character and work that is being done in our life as a spiritual act of worship that says, God, all that I am in my workplace, in my home, at church, when I'm parenting, when my son is driving me crazy, it is an act of worship. Crazy, I know. When my little boy is tearing things that I just bought and running into the street in the yard sale, it's an act of worship in how I parent him. Okay? Don't always get it right, but it's an act of worship, right? It's this recognition that our deepest form of worship is to offer all that we are to God. Coram Deo, before the face of God. That's the big idea. Next to this idea, our other goals, our other ambitions, our other desires become nothing more than trifles. Because all of our life, our spiritual act of worship, belongs to God and to God alone. And one of the ways that we as a church family do this together is by celebrating and sharing the Lord's Supper together. And so you all should have received a communion packet. If you haven't, Pastor is going to come back up here and give us instruction, because he's going to lead us into a communion, because this is one of the ways that we as a church family come together and we worship with a recognition of God, because of what you did on the cross and because of the things that you're doing in my life. I give it all back to you. It belongs to you.